Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, both here and of course in Philly. Yay, we'll see you guys in Philly in a couple months. We're grateful for your presence and your commitment to being a part of ABA, and we greatly appreciate that. So, no further ado, I'll go ahead and turn this over to our CEO, Fred Ferguson.
Cool. Thank you, Basha. And hey, everyone, thanks for joining us. Basha and I are both relatively new in our positions. So Basha took over the membership department back in, I think, August, and I started as the president and CEO back in July. And so one of the things we're trying to do is to get out in front of folks in the industry as much as we can to talk about ABA, to talk about, our membership offering and to obviously to try and get as many people into our coalition as possible. So sessions like these is our attempt at kind of sharing what we're all about, answering questions, and just getting to know more people. So I know there's a lot going on, and I just want to say thank you for taking the time to join us. We will obviously, this is being recorded. We will post this on our website. And as I said a minute ago, I promise not to talk the whole time so that we can ask some questions and hopefully get you guys out of here so you can get to your other commitments. All right, so got to start at the top. So purpose, why? In many ways, as we try and boil down ABA into a bumper sticker, we're trying to get clever, and it really comes down to we're driving travel. That can be thought of in a few ways. Literally, we're taking people where they need to go through the bus and motor coach, but we also want to be a bigger, driver enabler of mobility and movement, and that includes, advocating and lobbying for positions that are good for travel. That includes, events like Marketplace that, allow for, business exchanges to happen, and, creating content throughout the year that speaks to safety, compliance, trip planning, networking and the like. And then that really plays into our vision, which is really we want to convene and connect and represent, essentially the ecosystem of the group travel industry, which is motor coach, charter bus operators, tour planners, and all of those businesses who benefit from a motor coach full of people. It's amazing how many people join ABA because they want to be connected to the trip planners and the operators so that they can generate economic activity for their own business. So it really is a unique coalition that brings all segments of the group travel and mobility industry under our roof. So it's a really the more I've gotten involved, the more I've appreciated the diversity of the ABA membership. So quick ABA by the numbers. So the dark shaded areas show where we have membership. So we've got all 50 states covered, and we've got a pretty big chunk of Canada and working to grow our presence in Mexico as well. We're approaching our 100th year. We've been around since 1926. Our membership enables 400 million passenger trips annually. By comparison, the airlines are somewhere in the 600 million range. So that just speaks to the scale and breadth of what our industry does in terms of moving people. Two-thirds of coaches on the road are ABA members. And collectively, we've got over 1,900 members who are part of our network. And, part of the membership value proposition is, we try to go to great lengths to make sure connections can happen across those nearly 2,000 members on a regular basis. And that's through different trainings, networking events, webinars, sessions, et cetera. I think all of you are familiar with Marketplace. It's one of the largest gatherings of the group travel industry. We're expecting over 3,000 people this year at Philly. And just as we look at surveys and checking in with membership, 75% of, our membership base, views their membership as a high value and that we're a trusted source of information. So how do you boil down kind of the ABA value proposition into one slide? It's not easy, but here's kind of how we try and go about it. First and foremost, the marketplace is the biggest driver of what we do. It brings together so many elements of the travel industry into an exchange, into a marketplace where business is actually, changing hands. It's not just a product display, it's not just a pitch from vendors, but it's truly a booking experience for both operators and trip planners. Our education and resource focus is really quite vast. We have the Bus Industry Safety Council, which is probably the preeminent institution for regulatory compliance, safety best practices, trainings for safety directors and maintenance leaders, across our businesses. Marketing and communications. So we've got a tool on our website, which our website is buses.org, which from a URL standpoint is quite strong. And it's turning into a hub for consumers actually who are looking to book a trip. And so we're trying to enable and using technology to use our website and that platform as a mechanism to generate leads, for our charter bus, members. So that's a really interesting and exciting opportunity. And then policy and advocacy, and Callie from our lobbying team is joining us. But so much of the reasons that trade associations exist is to lobby on behalf of the industry. Most of our 2,000 member companies could not hire a lobbyist of their own. So we band together to create a lobbying team that can represent all of us. And, so much of what we're trying to do is establish ABA as this preeminent source of information on the group travel and motor coach industry so that, you all lived through COVID. I don't have to tell you this, but when a crisis hits, you got to have built-in relationships with these policymakers before the crisis comes, so that when something's happening and you're looking for funding, support, relief, et cetera, you've got those relationships built in. So, and at the same time, as different tax policy is moving forward or other big funding bills, highway reauthorizations, we want to make sure that our point of view is injected into all of those debates. And I'm happy in my first 100 days on the job, we've essentially doubled our lobbying team from 2 to 4, and that's going to enable us to reach more policymakers to tell our story, and hopefully to get some proactive wins, but also to play defense against regulations that we don't like, such as these one-sided EV mandates that are coming from states like California and others. So other things that trade associations can do quite well is we can pool our resources to get better pricing. So we've got some healthcare partnerships, fuel, CDL trainings, credit card processing, other trip insurance partnerships that enable us to get better pricing for our membership. So, what does it cost to join ABA? We've got 4 different categories. We've got bus operators, tour operators, travel and tourism, and suppliers. And you can kind of see here the average cost for most of our membership is under $1,000. And so what we try and do is as much as we can is to demonstrate the value that membership, check brings. My wife has a small business, and I certainly can relate to the challenge of funding resources that aren't directly impacting our P&L. But when we start to think about the marketing, the lobbying, the marketplace interface that we can enable, we like to think that the dollars spent for membership certainly are paid back and then some over time. ABA 100. So that is kind of our calling card for the next couple of years. 2026 is the 100th anniversary. We've got Route 66 is turning 100. The World Cup's coming to town. The Ryder Cup, if you're into golf, is going to be here. We've got some Olympic Games upcoming. So it's just a really exciting time to be in the group travel industry. And so I promised I wouldn't talk the whole time. So I am done with my presentation. I'm going to allow Callie to introduce herself briefly. And then we really want to turn it over for questions. We can go in a lot of different directions, but I just appreciate you all being on. I do know that some of you have some hard stops, so I want to be respectful of that. So without further ado, Callie, go ahead.
Thank you, Fred, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Callie Hoyt. I am ABA's Senior Vice President of Public Affairs and Government Relations. I'm the newest member of ABA's team, even though Fred has only been on for about 90 days. I'm about 2.5 weeks in, but I've spent the last decade of my career running advocacy and government relations for trade associations. My background is in transportation and outdoor industry sectors. So I worked on manufacturing, workforce, infrastructure, public lands and waters, and community economic development issues, all policy areas that are going to fall well suited within ABA's priorities and interests. I really just wanted to quickly touch on what advocacy is and why it matters. And Fred covered some of this, but ultimately, advocacy at the end of the day is about telling your story and making your voice heard on issues that matter to you, to your company, to your employees, and to the broader industry. I'm sure everyone has heard the phrase, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And I think that rings true and couldn't ring more true when it comes to DC and policymaking and decision making. And so through ABA's advocacy and government relations program, what we're doing is making investments and building the infrastructure that's going to ensure we have that seat at the table. And so we're putting ourselves proactively in the driver's seat of shaping the future of our industry in partnership with our partners in Congress and in the administration to be able to affect change and shape good, sound policy that's going to create a healthy business environment for our industry. Looking ahead at what advocacy will look like at ABA. ABA is as I'm sure you all are aware, is a longstanding, well-known, reputable stakeholder within the transportation community. And we are certainly going to continue that legacy, but we're also going to be building upon it. And we're going to do that by advancing a policy agenda in DC on behalf of our industry that is truly reflective of the full depth and breadth of the industry and that full ecosystem of the fixed route line haul, as well as charter bus services, as well as the big bucket of the travel and tourism in part of the industry as well. And as Fred mentioned, there are some big legislative vehicles and initiatives that are going to be moving in Congress next year, such as the highway bill. There's going to be a massive tax package as well, a lot on energy and sustainability, as well as public lands and how we can be putting forward good policy that helps create better connectivity and access for rural and underserved communities. And ABA's policy agenda is going to be designed in such a way where we're really covering the full scope of, being able to insert ourselves into those major moving pieces of legislation and doing so through the vantage point of safety, access, innovation, as well as industry growth as well. For ABA members, there's a lot of ways to get involved. I'm sure many of you have joined us at Marketplace, which is just 4 days of the year, but our team is hard at work every day working from that advocacy and government relations angle. And there's an important role for representatives within the industry to be playing a part in that. Just to give a little bit of flavor of what that looks like, ultimately for advocacy, we're the influence industry. And who is the most powerful influencer? It's a constituent. So it's each and every one of you. And so the way that we can help and work with you is to be working with you to help kind of cultivate those relationships with your elected officials to make sure that they know that you're based in their districts and in their states, and they know about your company, they know about your employees and your role in the community. And then we're also carrying forward that message of what the industry's priorities are. And so just through that relationship building, that's a really important way that we can partner with ABA members. It's also grassroots networks and activating that arm as well, so that we're having, spreading out and having more volume and knocking on every member of Congress's door when there are high important issues to the organization and to the industry, so that we're weighing in on those important pieces. The ABA also has a PAC as well, and that plays a really important role as we're building out a network, a true network of champions in Congress. We want to make sure that they stay there. And so an ABA is able to do that through our PAC by helping to make investments in those members' re-election campaigns. So that's just a little quick snapshot on advocacy and the important role that ABA members have in working together and as a unit and showing up as an industry. And I'll pass it back over to you, Basha, I guess, to open it up for Q&A.
Okay. Well, thank you, Callie. And just to reiterate on what Callie was saying, if you don't mind, just a few minutes. Of course, marketplace is our biggest driver, but what we're doing here in initiating new programs, staying focused on our four core topics, we want to make ABA's membership value 360 days a year. So, do we have any questions?
And I know I can ask a question, Callie. Callie was with the trade association during COVID, and that association certainly has more resources than ABA has historically had. But what was it like during COVID, and how successful was your trade association in getting, economic relief, stimulus programs, et cetera?
So during COVID, the most immediate need, and I came previously to ABA from the recreational boating industry, representing boat builders, engine and accessory manufacturers. In April and May, all of those manufacturing plants shut down. And we had a number of businesses within our industry, all predominantly small businesses, that were eligible for this new PPP program that was built out from the Small Business Administration that were overnight there were tons of funds available through this program. And so what our team did was we quickly hosted a webinar that walked our members through what the program is, what the eligibility looks like, how it can help the company, and what are the first and most immediate steps that they need to do to be able to put applications in for those programs. And so that was our first step. And then the next part of it was continuing to keep our members engaged and informed on what the loan forgiveness looked like. And as I'm sure many of you experienced as well with that program, there were a lot of changes to the program, because it was stood up almost overnight by Congress. And so we were continuing to be, at the table, talking to policymakers, helping them to understand what some of the issues were with the structure of the program and how it needed to be reformed. And we were able to get some of those changes made, and then just continue to be keeping our members in the know on what those realities look like, so that they were able to keep things afloat and take care of their employees and their companies during that time frame.
This is Fred. I'm with Cardiff Transportation in Palm Desert, California. I'm new to your organization, even though I've been here for 7 years. I'm particularly interested in what Fred brought up relative to the EV mandates, particularly here to California. How can I get more involved from an advocacy point with the ABA and folks like Callie?
So Fred, I'm happy to connect with you offline just so that I can get more in the know on kind of what your perspective is. But the CARB regulations, as well as the EPA regulations around EV mandates, is something that is top of mind for us, and where we are going to continue to be heavily engaged. From an EPA standpoint, we obviously have an administration that is kind of coming into their final hours, and we are weighing in with the EPA. There's always a window during the lame duck where an outgoing administration tries to rush out as many of their top priorities as they can. And so we are having those conversations with the outgoing administration, and we're also teeing up having that dialogue with the new incoming administration as well. But ultimately, at the end of the day, when it comes to EV, what we're looking to do, and this is something that ABA has additional other investments and plans in, is really telling our story from that sustainability lens, and that our industry is very much so invested in prioritizing reducing our environmental footprint, but we have to do that in a realistic way that is going to be market driven, and that we're going to be able to have the transportation options and the infrastructure that's going to be able to support that. And so we are in the kind of initial stages of building out from a data and messaging standpoint what that looks like, so that we're getting ahead of any other potential, poorly based or thought out regulations that are going to put us in the direction that we've already seen happening within CARB. But Fred, just going back, I'd be happy
Yeah.
to, Basha can put us in touch to connect so that I can help make sure that you're plugged in both in the state level with CARB as well as our initiatives with EPA.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Another reason why we're trying to expand membership is we've got tools that when a CARB is putting out a new regulation, for example, we've got a tool that enables us to send policy alerts to the 2,000 members that we have with kind of a direct checklist of what they can do. It would include a platform where you literally push a button, type your name into the system, and we have letters that are pre-generated that then get sent to the EPA or sent to CARB. And that letter would be a template that says, we oppose what you're doing. Here's why we oppose what you're doing. We think you should consider this. And then it gives you a chance to sign your business name directly. And what we're trying to do is if we go from 2,000 members to 4,000 members, that doubles our impact. It gives us more voices that we can activate so that when Callie and I show up and people would consider us to be suits, when the suits show up, we'll have one message. But if we have 4,000 people backing us up who are actually on the front lines, running businesses, operating these companies, that's a really powerful advocacy tool. So I think that's one of the reasons why we're so focused on membership, is so we can have a bigger pool to activate, to get involved at the grassroots level. So I think that's a huge thing that we do for membership. And then second, we're building out these micro fly-ins where we may bring out a contingent of California operators to DC, and we just stay in the California. We meet with California members and representatives to tell our story. We may do the same in the Northeast, where these idling restrictions are killing bus companies with fines and fees and the like. And so the more members we have and the more coverage we have across the country, we can do these targeted fly-ins that allow each region who may be experiencing different issues to really speak their voice. So those are things that we're going to be rolling out and are doing on a regular basis for our membership. That was a great question.
Okay.
Hey, Ariel.
Hey, how's it going? So I'm Ariel Chin. I work for the Lexington Visitor Center in the New England area, in the Boston area, actually, in Massachusetts. And actually because I'm actually part of town government, so I know I'm a little bit familiar with, how governments are run or whatnot, and especially with the idling, as Fred was mentioning, that it is kind of an issue, at least in the New England area, where buses literally can't idle. I literally have, since I work with a lot of residents as well, they want to take away a lot of our bus parking in a lot of these areas. And that I've heard through other tour operators, they're just trying to take away a lot of these larger buses, which would affect tourism actually, because, if you have a group of 50 people and they have nowhere to drop them or even have the buses to go, that becomes a real issue. So, and also, just on a separate note about electric buses, is there an ABA where which companies have the electric buses right now? So to even like I have other tour operators, or even just literally I actually book private companies where they're looking for a bus. If I could give them a company that said, hey, we do electric, it helps sustainability or whatnot, like building out relationships like that.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mentioned we have a portal that allows consumers to basically search our members for leads for charter bookings. As that portal gets more sophisticated, you could potentially have, drop down options. I think now we can do it on size, but if you had, different drop downs based on EV versus traditional, that could certainly be a tool that consumers would find valuable. But I love what you said. You just gave kind of the best ABA pitch that anybody could give, which is lobbying on behalf of buses has a direct impact on the travel and tourism industry. So what we're trying to do is create basically the expectation that lobbying for buses is good for travel and tourism. But what we also want to do is we want to go to destinations like Lexington and also say, what also is good for you? What specific things do you need Is it visa reform for inbound travelers? Do we need better processing at customs so that more international trips can happen who then come to our destination? We want to go back to the bus operator and say, hey, you need to also care about what the travel industry cares about, because when they're healthy, you're healthy. And it's just this constant interconnectivity between the two sides. And I think that's what makes ABA so unique, is that between marketplace and our membership, we have all those people at the table already. So I just appreciated what you said, and think you perfectly articulated what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and Ariel, one other thing I would just add, just in terms of the where we're looking to kind of establish that awareness and understanding of what the bus industry and group travel industry mean, and what that depth and breadth is. Your example of the parking lots, I think what we're trying to work towards is, so when those considerations are being made, they're not looking at that bus parking spot as a area of real estate. They're looking at it through the lens of the dollars that are behind the what's going to be generated from an economic development standpoint for hotels, restaurants, shops in those communities. And so that's the kind of the nuance of that, drawing those connections of the economic impact, and how much of an underpinning that is in communities across the country.
Yeah, that's great. That is really great.
Well, I know some folks had their hard stop at the half hour. So are there any other questions or comments maybe you have for us that we can kind of take back as well? All right. Well, look, we appreciate you guys getting on. We'd love to find a way to get you to sign up for a membership. I think each of you are going to be at Marketplace, so I look forward to meeting you there. And just really thank you for the time, and let's keep in touch.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very
All right.
much.
Everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.